So, um, I want you to imagine a legendary musical trio, right? Like a band that has just been playing together for decades.
Oh, yeah, like one of those classic rock groups.
Exactly. So you have the iconic lead singer who just commands the center stage. They get all the attention. Their face is on, every magazine cover.
Right, the front man.
Yeah, the front man. And then you have the flashy lead guitarist, the one who plays those soaring, unforgettable solos that just get stuck in your head for days.
Everyone air guitars too.
Totally. But as time goes on, history kind of crystallizes around those two. They become these absolute household names. But completely forgotten, like standing in the shadows at the dimly lit back of the stage, is the crucial bass player.
Oh, man. It's always the bass player.
Right. The one who actually gave the music its depth, the low-end rhythm, the real driving force. I mean, if you were to somehow mute that bass player's amplifier, the entire sound of the band would instantly become, like, thin and weak.
Hollow, yeah.
Exactly, hollow. But because they aren't stepping up to the microphone, history simply forgets they were ever there.
It is a phenomenon you see across almost every discipline, honestly, not just music.
Really? How so?
Well, I mean, the elements of a system that are flashy or immediately accessible or just aggressively marketed, they tend to absorb all the cultural oxygen.
That makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, while the foundational structural elements, the ones doing the heavy, complex lifting behind the scenes, they just slip completely into obscurity.
And that dynamic is precisely what this deep dive is about today for you guys. Though we are stepping far away from the music industry.
Just a bit.
Yeah, just a bit. Today, we're looking into a forgotten structural powerhouse in the world of classical herbal medicine.
It's a fascinating one, too.
It really is. So we are exploring this highly detailed source text that examines a botanical marvel known traditionally as Thipoli.
And for those listening who might be looking for the English translation, that's known as long pepper.
Right, long pepper. And according to the historical text we're analyzing today, this plant is the forgotten third member of this legendary herbal trinity in Siddha medicine.
A combination known as Thirikkadugu.
Yes, the Rikadugu. Now, the first two members of this trinity are chiku, which is dry ginger, and miligu, which is standard black pepper.
So those are our lead singer and our guitarist.
Exactly. Our lead singer and guitarist, I mean, everyone listening right now knows exactly what ginger tastes like. Everyone knows what black pepper smells like when it's, ground over a meal.
Oh, they are completely ubiquitous. I mean, they are staples in almost every single kitchen globally across vastly different cultures and cuisines.
Yeah, totally.
You don't need to have even a passing interest in like holistic health or herbal medicine to be intimately familiar with the heat of ginger or the sharp bite of black pepper.
Right, because they've been commercialized and distributed on this massive global scale.
Exactly. But Thipoli, the long pepper, as our source text rigorously points out, has experienced this profound historical erasure.
It really has. For our current generation, it's almost entirely vanished from the culinary and medicinal consciousness.
Which is wild when you think about it. And the stark disparity between its current lack of cultural presence and its immense historical medical pedigree, that's what makes it such a compelling subject.
Yeah, because the source material we're looking at doesn't just list it as some minor flavor enhancer.
No, not at all. It argues, with a surprising amount of detail, that Thipoli possesses major systemic medicinal qualities.
Qualities that not only rival, but in several highly specific physiological applications, actually far exceed the capabilities of its famous siblings.
Which brings us to exactly why we are doing this deep dive for you today.
Right. I mean, if you look at the reality of the modern era we are all currently navigating, it is incredibly taxing on the human respiratory system.
Oh, absolutely. We are constantly breathing in microparticulate air pollution,
Dealing with chronic respiratory inflammation.
navigating an explosion of unexplained seasonal allergies, too.
Yes. And relying heavily on a daily regimen of synthesized pharmaceuticals just to, keep our airways open.
We are in this perpetual state of searching for effective, sustainable tools to help us survive this environment.
So the idea of rediscovering a highly potent, naturally occurring mechanism, one that's been stress-tested by centuries of use but somehow left out of the modern grocery store supply chain, I mean, that could fundamentally alter how you approach your personal health toolkit.
It really could be a game changer.
Okay, let's unpack this. Before we try to understand the modern biochemical breakdown of this plant, we need to understand its historical context.
Right. How did ancient practitioners conceptualize a plant that they considered powerful enough to anchor their most important medicinal trinity?
Exactly. Where do we even start with historical sources?
Well, to grasp its historical weight, we have to look at how it was documented by the foundational masters of Siddha medicine. The source text brings forward a highly specific reference from an ancient practitioner and poet named Theron Siddhar.
Okay, a poet practitioner.
Yeah, and what is critical to understand about these historical medical texts is that they weren't written like modern clinical white
Right,
papers.
they weren't just like dry lists of facts and figures.
Exactly. They were often composed in verse, using incredibly evocative language to describe physiological mechanisms.
So how did Theron Siddhar describe it?
Well, he wrote a line about Thipoli that translates roughly to the concept that severe diseases that stand against it will bow down.
Wait, I want to pause on that specific phrasing. Severe diseases will bow down.
It's powerful, right?
It's a very deliberate choice of words. It does not say it reduces the severity of a cough or it provides mild relief for throat irritation.
No, it implies a hierarchy.
Yeah, a struggle for dominance within the body, where the medicine physically overpowers the pathology. It paints a picture of Thipoli acting like a biological bulldozer.
A biological bulldozer, I like that.
Right, it's not just sweeping up some cellular debris.
Mm-hmm.
It is dropping its blade and actively forcing a deeply rooted, highly stubborn obstruction to yield to its chemical will.
And that concept of forceful systemic intervention, it aligns perfectly with how the text describes its primary historical application.
Which is what exactly?
The source specifically highlights Thipoli's role in combating a severe childhood disease known in the Siddha tradition as Elaipunoi.
The lipunoi, and that correlates directly to what modern allopathic medicine calls primary complex, right?
Yes, exactly.
Primary complex is essentially the early localized manifestation of childhood tuberculosis, correct? I mean, we are not talking about a seasonal flu or a rhinovirus here.
No, we're talking about a major bacterial infection, Mycobacterium tuberculosis.
That's intense.
It is. It's a severe, deeply entrenched, wasting disease. And the text goes into painful detail about the progression of Elaipunoi. The symptoms are harrowing for a parent to witness.
I can only imagine. What are the symptoms listed?
Well, a child suffering from this experience is rapid, unexplained weight loss, a persistent low-grade fever that simply refuses to break, and the chronic production of thick, obstructive mucus.
So their body is just fighting this relentless battle.
Exactly. The child's metabolic energy is being entirely cannibalized by the infection and the sheer muscular effort required just to breathe.
Wow. And in this specific dire context, the historical practitioners, they didn't prescribe Thipoli as a comforting tea to make the child feel a bit better while the disease ran its course, right?
Not at all. They positioned it as the primary aggressive intervention. It was the biological bulldozer sent in to force that complex, wasting bacterial environment to bow down.
And I mean, if a plant is capable of intervening in something as devastating as tuberculosis, it clearly is not just acting locally to numb the throat.
Right. It's not a lozenge.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It has to be triggering a massive systemic shift in the body's overall immune and metabolic response. And the text actually introduces an alternative name for Thipoli that hints at exactly how the ancients believed it achieved this systemic shift.
Yes. Within the complex lexicon of Siddha medicine, Thipoli is frequently referred to by the alias Kaman.
Kaman. What is the physiological translation of that term?
Well, to decode the name Kaman, we have to briefly step into the fundamental energetic mechanics of the Siddha system.
Okay, let's do it.
This ancient medical paradigm operates on the understanding of three primary doshas, or bodily humors. And one of the most critical is pitham.
Pitham. And pitham is not a physical organ, right?
No, it's a conceptual framework for metabolic heat. It governs enzymatic activity, digestion, cellular transformation, and essentially the basal metabolic rate of the human body.
Okay, so it's the body's internal furnace.
Precisely. Now, the ancients observed that in conditions of severe respiratory distress, asthma, or chronic mucus production, the body's pitham is pathologically low.
So the internal furnace has essentially gone out.
Exactly. The body becomes cold, sluggish, and stagnant.
And what happens in that cold state?
Well, in that cold, stagnant environment, tissues contract. The smooth muscles around the airways tighten up because there isn't enough metabolic heat to keep them relaxed and dilated.
Oh, I see.
Yeah, and fluids in the body begin to congeal, turning from thin, easily cleared liquids in a thick, heavy, immovable mucus.
So Thipoli earns the title common because
Okay,
it reignites that furnace.
exactly. Its primary defined mechanical action is to aggressively raise and stabilize this pithum. It is ingested to essentially dump fuel onto the body's metabolic fire, raising the core heat.
Which in turn melts the stagnation.
Right. It dilates the contracted tissues and forces the body out of its sluggish, compromised state.
Okay, I am trying to wrap my head around that because when I was reading this section of the source text, I hit a massive conceptual roadblock.
Oh, what was that?
Well, the text states that by aggressively raising this metabolic heat, Thippely cures the asthma.
Yes.
But then, in the exact same breath, it claims that this same action simultaneously increases sperm count.
Yes, that part.
I mean, I need to push back on this. Structurally, chemically, and anatomically, the pulmonary system and the male reproductive system are entirely distinct.
They are.
How can a pharmacological intervention meant to open up bronchial tubes suddenly become a potent reproductive aid? That sounds less like medicine and more like ancient mythology, trying to make a plant sound like a magic cure-all.
I completely get why you'd say that. It absolutely sounds like a vast illogical leap if we confine our thinking to the highly compartmentalized structure of modern Western medicine.
Right, because everything is so specialized now.
Exactly. Today, we have extreme medical specialization. You take a beta agonist inhaler, like albuterol, and it is designed to bind almost exclusively to the beta-2 adrenergic receptors in the smooth muscle of your lungs.
Its sole mission is to force those specific muscles to relax.
Exactly. It is not designed to interact with your digestive tract or your reproductive organs. In fact, if it does cause systemic changes, like elevating your heart rate or causing tremors in your hands, modern medicine classifies those as unwanted side effects.
Yeah, we view systemic impact as a flaw in the drug's design. We want a sniper rifle, not a grenade.
Precisely. But the Siddha system, and by extension the pharmacology of long pepper, operates on an entirely different physiological philosophy.
How so?
It views the human body not as a collection of isolated organs, but as a deeply interconnected, closed-loop thermodynamic system.
Okay, a thermodynamic system.
Right. If a disease like asthma is taking hold because the entire system is suffering from a critical lack of metabolic fire, a low pithum, then you cannot achieve a true cure by just temporarily forcing the lungs open.
You have to reignite the central furnace.
Exactly. Thippely is introduced to the body to raise the core metabolic energy of the entire organism.
So if the core metabolic rate increases, you're saying that has a cascading effect on systems completely unrelated to the original symptom.
Exactly. Think about the biological reality of raising core heat and metabolic activity. It triggers systemic vasodilation.
Blood vessels widen.
Yes, circulation improves dramatically. The heat travels to the lungs, dilating the bronchial tubes and melting the stagnant mucus, which resolves the immediate asthmatic crisis.
Okay, that covers the lungs. What about the reproductive part?
Well, that same revitalized, oxygen-rich blood, driven by an elevated metabolic rate, continues its systemic loop. It flows heavily into the pelvic region.
Oh, I see where this is going.
Enhanced blood flow and increased core vitality naturally stimulate gonadal function, optimize cellular regeneration, and inevitably support increased spermatogenesis.
Wow, so the reproductive benefit is not some random magical side effect.
Not at all. It is the physiological proof that the underlying systemic pathology, the cold, stagnant, low pithum state, has been successfully eradicated.
So the plant isn't targeting the lungs, and it isn't targeting the reproductive system. It is targeting the underlying energy deficit that is causing both systems to fail.
That's exactly.
That is a radically different way to conceptualize healing. But this leads to a critical transition point.
Okay.
We have established how the ancients viewed this bulldozer through the lens of metabolic heat and pithum, but we live in the 21st century.
We do.
How does that ancient holistic philosophy hold up when we drag it into a modern laboratory? Because the source text makes a massive, highly specific claim about how Thippely directly mirrors one of our most advanced pharmaceutical interventions for asthma.
Yes, the translation of ancient pithum into modern biochemistry is where the source text becomes incredibly compelling.
Let's talk about that.
If you or a loved one suffers from moderate to severe chronic asthma today, your pulmonologist will likely prescribe a specific class of maintenance drugs known as anti-leukotrienes.
Like Montelukast, right?
Exactly, medications like Montelukast. And these are not rescue inhalers, they are daily pills, usually taken at night, designed to chemically suppress the body's inflammatory pathways to prevent an asthma attack from ever starting.
Okay, so it's preventative.
Right. And the source text explicitly states that the biochemical compounds found in Thippely perform the exact same pharmacological function as these highly synthesized modern anti-leukotriene drugs.
Okay, to really understand the weight of that claim, we need to understand what a leukotriene actually is.
We definitely do.
Why is modern medicine spending billions of dollars to create drugs to stop them? And how is this dried pepper supposedly doing the exact same thing?
Well, leukotrienes are powerful inflammatory lipid mediators produced by your immune system.
Okay.
When your body detects an allergen or an irritant entering the airways, specific immune cells like mast cells and macrophages go into a state of high alert.
They sound the alarm.
They do. They release an enzyme called 5-lipoxygenase, which breaks down cellular acids to rapidly manufacture leukotrienes.
And what do these leukotrienes do once they're manufactured?
They flood into your lung tissue, and they do 3 very specific, very dangerous things to your respiratory system.
3 things. Okay, what's the first?
First, they bind to receptors on the smooth muscle lining your airways and command them to violently contract.
So they literally squeeze the airway shut.
Yes. Second, they cause the blood vessels in the lungs to leak plasma, causing immediate severe tissue swelling.
Okay, so you have contracted airways that are now swelling on the inside. That's terrifying.
It gets worse. Third, they hyperstimulate the goblet cells in your respiratory tract, commanding them to produce massive amounts of thick, sticky mucus.
It is a total systemic panic.
Yeah.
The body is essentially trying to barricade the doors to prevent the irritant from getting deeper, but in doing so, it suffocates you.
That's a perfect way to describe it.
And modern drugs work by chemically blocking the receptors that the leukotrienes are trying to bind to. So how does Thippely execute its trifold attack on this exact same pathway, according to the text? Let's break down the 3 steps.
The source outlines a deeply specific 3-pronged mechanism of action that essentially acts as a mirror to modern pharmacology. The first phase targets what the text identifies as the tightness of chest.
Which refers directly to that leukotriene-induced bronchospasm.
Exactly. The piperine alkaloids within the long pepper actively intervene to reduce this muscular tightening, acting to interrupt the chemical signals commanding the smooth muscle to spasm.
So it stops the squeezing.
Right. The second phase is active bronchodilation. While reducing the spasm stops the tightening, the bronchodilation phase actively forces the smooth muscles to relax and widen,
Restoring the physical diameter of the airway so oxygen can actually pass through.
Exactly.
Which is the immediate relief phase.
Yeah.
But it is the third phase mentioned in the text that is the most functionally difficult to achieve, the mucolytic action.
Breaking down the mucus that has flooded the expanded airways.
Yes. And the source text uses a brilliantly evocative tactile analogy to describe the specific nature of this asthmatic mucus.
Really does.
The text compares it to cooked sago. Sago, for those who might not know, is essentially tapioca pearls.
Like in boba tea, but cooked down.
Right. And when you cook tapioca, it doesn't just turn into a liquid. It absorbs water, swells, and turns into this dense, incredibly sticky, viscoelastic gel.
It's like glue.
It is. I want you listening to mentally map that onto your internal anatomy. Imagine trying to draw a breath through microscopic bronchial tubes that are entirely coated in a thick, gelatinous layer of cooked tapioca that is super glued to the cellular walls.
The horrible thought.
It is. This is not the kind of thin, watery fluid you get with a common cold that you can just, cough up into a tissue. This is a structural, rubbery blockade.
And it adheres fiercely to the cilia, the tiny hairs in your lungs, and simply refuses to move no matter how violently your chest heaves trying to expel it.
That intense viscoelasticity is the defining nightmare of chronic asthmatic mucus. It is structurally resistant to normal bodily expulsion.
The text asserts that Thippely functions as a profound mucolytic agent against this specific type of blockage.
So it doesn't just add water to thin it out.
No, the text describes it acting almost like an industrial solvent.
A biological solvent.
Yes, it fundamentally alters the chemical structure of the mucus, breaking the molecular bonds that make it so sticky. It actively peels that cooked sago layer off the epithelial lining of the lungs, liquefies it, and stimulates the respiratory system to finally successfully expel it.
It takes something that is functionally glued to your lungs and unbinds it.
It is an elegant mechanical intervention.
Absolutely.
But to fully appreciate how vital this ancient plant is right now, today, we have to look at what triggers this massive leukotriene and mucus response in the first place.
Okay, let's look at the triggers.
The source text brings in a highly relevant point by referencing findings from contemporary international medical journals regarding the impact of air pollution.
So we aren't just talking about pollen anymore.
No. These modern journals confirm that environmental pollutants, specifically diesel exhaust, industrial smog, fine particulate matter known as PM2.5, and all the microscopic debris of modern urban life, they are incredibly potent triggers for the release of both histamine and leukotrienes.
So just walking outside in the city can trigger this.
Exactly. When you inhale urban air, the microscopic particles embed deeply in the lung tissue. The immune system detects them not just as irritants, but as toxic invaders.
And then it initiates that massive leukotriene cascade we just discussed.
Right. The airways clamp down, the tissues swell, and the cooked sago mucus floods the system.
Which explains so much. I mean, this is why we are seeing an explosion of asthma and respiratory distress in major metropolitan areas, even among people who have, like, no genetic history of it.
It's environmentally induced.
Your body breathes in traffic exhaust, goes into a state of severe biological panic, and suddenly your lung capacity is halved.
Exactly. And this is where the text positions Thiopurine not just as a treatment, but as a biological shield.
A shield, how so?
Well, by functioning as a natural anti-leukotriene, consuming long pepper essentially preempts this panic response. It raises the threshold required for the immune system to freak out.
So it intercepts the chemical cascade triggered by the smog.
Right, preventing the sudden hypersecretion of mucus and stopping the airways from aggressively clamping down just because you walk down a busy street.
That is a staggering realization.
Isn't it?
I mean, think about it. This plant evolved thousands of years ago, utilized by ancient civilizations living in pristine environments. Yet, it contains the precise biochemical key to defend the human respiratory system against the synthetic, industrialized smog of the 21st century.
It's almost poetic.
It really is.
Yeah.
But the source text makes it very clear that if we only focus on the lungs, we are completely missing the actual brilliance of this medical system.
Yes, this is a crucial point.
To actually cure the respiratory system, the text insists we have to look down. We have to treat the digestive tract.
This is a major paradigm shift that bridges ancient holistic observation with cutting-edge modern science. We are talking about the gut-lung axis.
The gut-lung axis, we hear the phrase gut health constantly today.
Everywhere.
Right, but it is usually marketed in relation to, like, taking probiotics to improve your mood or to stop bloating after a heavy meal.
The wellness industry loves it.
Yeah, exactly. But the source text isn't talking about mood. It is outlining a direct structural mechanical pipeline between the lower intestines and the upper respiratory tract.
And to illustrate this, the text highlights a very specific remedy designed for a very specific patient profile.
Let's get into that. What's the profile?
It looks at children or the elderly who are simultaneously suffering from deep chest congestion and severe constipation.
Okay, so blocked chest and blocked bowels.
Right. In the CITA medical framework, that combination of symptoms is never viewed as a coincidence. They are two symptoms of the exact same underlying failure of elimination.
And the text provides a rigorous formulation to address this, right?
Yes. The protocol requires taking equal parts of finely ground thiopurine powder and combining it with the powder of a botanical known as kadukai.
Kadukai. For those familiar with Ayurvedic terminology, kadukai is haritaki.
Correct.
And kadukai is widely revered as a gastrointestinal modulator, right?
All right. Yes, it is a highly effective, non-habit-forming bowel regulator. It stimulates peristalsis, the wave-like muscle contractions of the intestines, and helps clear stagnant waste from the colon without causing severe cramping.
Okay, so we have thiopurine and kadukai. How are they combined?
The protocol dictates that these two equal powders are rolled into a paste using raw honey as the binding agent, and this mixture is consumed by the patient at night, right before sleep.
And here is the crucial analytical statement the text makes, which I really honestly had to read twice to fully grasp.
It's a bold claim.
It states explicitly that the physical act of loosening the stool and forcefully clearing the bowels is what actually reduces the phlegm in the chest and provides the ultimate resolution for the asthma.
It is a brilliant observation of fluid dynamics within the human body.
I am still trying to wrap my head around that. Because if you look at a modern hospital, the gastroenterologist is on the 3rd floor and the pulmonologist is on the 6th floor. And they rarely, if ever, talk to each other about the same patient.
Almost never. Modern medicine treats them as entirely separate biological continents.
But this text is essentially arguing that they're just looking at two ends of the exact same blocked pipe. It's
Exactly.
like,
Yeah.
if the drain pipe in the basement of a house is totally clogged, eventually the water is going to back up and overflow into the kitchen sink on the first floor.
That plumbing analogy is highly accurate to how holistic paradigms view the mucosal immune system.
Really? Tell me more about that connection.
Well, the mucosal lining of your gut and the mucosal lining of your lungs are intricately connected via the lymphatic system and shared immunological pathways.
Okay.
When the digestive tract is blocked, when there's chronic constipation, the body cannot eliminate metabolic waste, dead cells, and toxins downwards. The lower pathways are physically obstructed.
So it's trapped.
Right. And because the body must eliminate this waste to survive, it is forced to seek alternative, secondary routes of excretion.
It pushes it upwards.
Yes. It begins to push that toxic load upwards, attempting to expel it through the mucosal linings of the throat, the nasal passages, and the lungs.
Wow. So the chronic heavy mucus in the lungs isn't actually a lung problem at all.
Nope.
The lungs are just desperately trying to do the job that the colon is failing to do.
Exactly. The respiratory congestion is a secondary symptom of impaired lower elimination.
Which means that if you only use a modern inhaler to forcefully dry up the lung mucus, you are essentially just turning off the kitchen sink's overflow valve without ever unclogging the pipe in the basement.
And the pressure just builds back up.
Unbelievable.
So by combining Thipoli, the biological bulldozer that melts the lung mucus and raises core heat, with Kadukai, the regulator that forcibly opens the downward exit pathways, you are creating a complete circuit of elimination.
You liquefy the blockage at the top and you open the drain at the bottom, allowing the entire systemic pressure to finally release.
It is an incredibly elegant, total system approach to pharmacology.
It really is. And the text proves that this systemic purification theory extends far beyond just the lungs and the gut.
It introduces a completely different pathology to hammer this point home.
Right. Severe dermatology. Specifically, it discusses the treatment of stubborn, deeply entrenched fungal infections of the skin that spread across the body and defy standard treatments.
Fungal infections, particularly severe dermatophyte infections, are notoriously difficult to eradicate.
Why is that?
They root deeply into the stratum corneum, the outermost layer of the skin, and they often signal a profound systemic imbalance within the body's internal microbiome and immune surveillance.
Fungi are incredibly resilient organisms, aren't they?
Very, and they thrive in specific physiological microclimates.
Now, the text acknowledges that external topical treatments exist and have their place. It explicitly mentions applying the raw juice of a plant called Simai agathi.
Which is a variant of the cassia plant highly regarded for its natural antifungal properties.
Right. And it also mentions bathing the affected areas with Nalungu Mavu, which is a traditional complex herbal bath powder used in South India.
Yes, but the text draws a massive line in the sand regarding these topical applications.
It insists that while the topical application of Simai agathi or Nalungu Mavu will manage the visible symptoms, they will not provide an ultimate cure.
Exactly. To achieve a permanent resolution, meaning the fungal colonies do not simply reestablish themselves a month after you start applying the paste, the text dictates a strict internal protocol.
And what is that protocol?
The patient must consume 2 pinches of pure Thipoli powder internally every single day.
You have to literally eat the hot pepper to cure the skin fungus.
Which perfectly validates the overarching pharmacological theme we have been exploring. Thipoli is not a localized symptom-masking agent. It acts as an aggressive, systemic biological purifier.
Okay, walk me through the mechanics of that.
Think about the microclimate a fungus needs to survive.
No.
It requires a damp, cool, stagnant environment.
In Siddha terms, a state of low pithum and high internal dampness.
Exactly. So by ingesting the long pepper, you are introducing potent piperine alkaloids into the bloodstream. You raise the core metabolic heat.
Reigniting the furnace.
Right. You vastly improve systemic peripheral circulation, pushing oxygen-rich blood all the way to the dermal layers.
So you're essentially altering the internal biochemical environment of the entire body.
Changing the pH and the sebum composition of the skin from the inside out.
You are turning the body into an inhospitable wasteland for the fungus.
That's one way to put it.
You aren't just poisoning the mushroom that popped up above the soil. You are salting the earth so the mycelial network beneath the skin starves and dies.
Exactly. It fundamentally alters the physiological terrain, proving that true dermatological health is almost always an inside-out process.
It is a stunning display of medical versatility. We started by looking at a remedy to stop a cough, and we have organically arrived at a systemic heat generator that regulates lower bowel motility, intercepts advanced immunological leukotriene cascades, and eradicates deep-rooted skin fungi from the bloodstream outward.
And the most incredible part is that up until this exact moment, we have literally only been talking about the fruit of the plant.
Wait, really? Just the little pepper itself?
Just the fruit. The source text makes it abundantly clear that if we stop at the fruit, we're ignoring half of the plant's medical genius.
So you have to look beneath the soil.
Yes, the text forces us to expand our view of the plant's anatomy. It insists that the entire botanical structure of Piper longum is a diverse pharmacological armory.
A pharmacological armory. I like that.
To understand its full potential, we must examine the specific applications of Thipili mulam.
Mulam being the Sanskrit and Tamil term for the root system.
Correct. The subterranean root network of the long pepper plant.
And does the root have the same properties as the fruit?
While the text acknowledges that the root does contain baseline concentrations of the same piperine alkaloids found in the fruit, meaning it inherently possesses some of the mucus-clearing, pithem-raising properties we've discussed. However, the true medical genius lies in how the root is chemically extracted. The preparation method entirely alters the drug's biological destination.
How does the text instruct the practitioner to prepare the root differently than the fruit?
To unlock the highly specialized power of Thipili mulam, the text strictly dictates that water or honey must not be used as the primary carrier.
No water or honey. What do you use instead?
The raw root must be meticulously ground into a paste using whole milk as the extraction medium.
Whole milk.
Yes. Once a fine paste is achieved, it is then thoroughly mixed into a larger volume of boiling milk, simmered and consumed by the patient in this heavy dairy-based liquid form.
Okay, let's break down the chemistry of that because it is fascinating.
It really is.
We have swapped out a sugar-dense, water-soluble carrier like honey for a heavy, complex, lipid and protein-dense emulsion like boiling whole milk. What does that change mechanically?
But processing the root specifically with high-heat lipids, the medicine fundamentally transforms. The target area shifts completely away from the respiratory mucosa.
Where does it go?
It becomes a deeply targeted, highly potent intervention for severe musculoskeletal and neurological inflammation.
Musculoskeletal. From a pepper root.
Yes. The text specifically highlights this milk decoction as a primary treatment for debilitating conditions like spondylosis.
Which is the severe age-related degeneration, inflammation, and compression of the spinal discs, right?
Exactly. And lumbago, which represents intense chronic pain radiating through the lower back musculature and fascia.
It is like the plant is a complex chemical lock, and the solve that you use is the key. It completely dictates what therapeutic doors open.
That's a brilliant analogy.
So the water-soluble compounds extracted by honey target the lungs.
Right.
But when you boil the root in milk, the dense triglycerides and fats in the dairy act as highly specialized chemical binders. They latch onto the fat-soluble, deeply anti-inflammatory piperine analogs locked inside the tough root structure.
Exactly. The milk fat essentially becomes an armored transport vehicle.
Carrying these potent anti-inflammatory compounds past the digestive acids, right into the bloodstream, and delivering them directly to dense, largely vascular tissues like the cartilage of the spinal discs and the deep nerve bundles of the lower back.
Areas where water-soluble drugs often struggle to penetrate effectively.
You start with a plant that cures asthma, you change how you cook it, and it suddenly becomes a targeted spinal anti-inflammatory. It's like a Swiss Army knife.
The pharmacokinetics involved in that traditional extraction method are incredibly sophisticated.
Truly.
And the text proves that this deep tissue versatility extends beyond just the spine. It cites a highly authoritative classical medical volume known as the Gunapada Newell.
The Siddha Materia Medica.
Yes, to detail a specialized application for complex women's health issues.
The Gunapada Newell is essentially the encyclopedia of pharmacological applications for these ancient doctors. What specific protocol does it outline for Thipili?
It outlines a very precise dual botanical protocol for women suffering from chronic, exhausting gynecological pathologies. Specifically, it targets the dual presentation of menorrhagia, abnormally heavy, prolonged menstrual bleeding, and leukorrhea, which is excessive, persistent white discharge that indicates deep pelvic inflammation or localized infection.
That is a complex presentation that involves hormones, localized tissue inflammation, and vascular integrity. How does Thippely address it?
The protocol in the Gunapata Newell requires combining the long pepper with another highly specific botanical to create a synergistic effect. It dictates taking exactly 30 grams of pure Thippely and combining it with exactly 30 grams of a plant known as the Trancotai.
The Trancota, which
Yeah.
is commonly called the clearing nut.
Right,
I
exactly.
am vaguely familiar with that. Isn't it traditionally used to purify muddy water?
Yes, Strychnos podatorum. It contains incredibly potent natural coagulants and astringent tannins.
Okay, so how is it prepared?
The text instructs that these two botanicals, 30 grams of each, must be ground together into an ultra-fine powder. And the prescribed clinical dosage is remarkably small, just 3 pinches of this combined powder taken in the morning.
Let's look at the pharmacology of that combination. The Thitrancotai brings those massive astringent properties, physically tightening the vascular tissue in the uterine wall to stem the heavy bleeding and bind the excessive mucosal discharge.
Right.
But astringents alone can cause stagnation.
Exactly. So the Thippely is introduced to act as the metabolic engine.
It raises the localized pithum, dramatically improving the blood flow to the pelvic floor, driving cellular repair, clearing out the localized inflammatory markers causing the discharge, and helping to regulate the underlying hormonal axis.
It is a perfectly balanced biological equation,
It really is.
which demonstrates the absolute mastery these ancient practitioners had over pharmacognosy. They understood how to pair opposing botanical forces, an astringent with a metabolic stimulant, to achieve perfect homeostasis in a deeply complex bodily system.
And it reinforces the sheer scale of what we are looking at. I mean, as a modern consumer, you're conditioned to buy one plastic bottle of pills for a cough, a totally different tube of cream for a fungal rash, a blister pack of NSAIDs for your lower back pain, and entirely separate hormonal medications for gynecological issues.
It's endless.
But this text maps out an entire comprehensive medical pharmacy contained within the cellular walls of a single plant species, manipulated simply by choosing the fruit or the root and modulating it with honey, milk, or a secondary seed.
It's humbling, really.
If you are listening to this, you are probably wondering how to actually interact with this botanical powerhouse. I know I want this biological bulldozer in my pantry right now.
I don't blame you.
But the source text doesn't just theorize. It provides a highly rigorous, incredibly strict buyer's guide and formulation manual.
The practical application section of the text is critical because with long pepper, quality and preparation dictate efficacy. Not all Thippely on the market is therapeutically viable.
So what should people look for?
Well, the text explains that if you visit a traditional herbal dispensary, a Natu Marindu Kadai, in the South Indian tradition, you will be presented with 2 distinct morphological variants of the spice.
Right, the text differentiates between Arisi Thippely and Yanai Thippely.
Exactly. Arisi Thippely translates to rice-like long pepper. Visually, it is very small, slender, and finely textured.
And the other one?
The other variant is Yanai Thippely, which translates to elephant long pepper. This variant is much larger, dramatically thicker, and physically imposing.
And human instinct usually dictates that bigger is better, especially when we're talking about a medicine.
Right, you want the big one.
But the text is fiercely definitive about this. For true medicinal application, you must entirely ignore the large elephant pepper and insist strictly on the Arisi Thippely.
Yes. From a phytochemical perspective, the smaller Arisi variant is vastly superior.
Why is that?
It contains a significantly higher, much more densely concentrated volume of the volatile essential oils and active piperine alkaloids required to trigger the physiological shifts we've discussed. The larger variant is largely fibrous and therapeutically diluted.
So, step 1. Identify the Arisi Thippely.
Yes.
But finding the right species is only the beginning. The text lays out rigid parameters for the physical state of the spice at the moment of purchase. You cannot just buy a jar of pre-ground brown powder off a supermarket shelf.
Buying pre-ground powder is a critical error.
Why?
The active medicinal compounds in long pepper are highly volatile. The moment the cellular structure of the spice is crushed and exposed to oxygen, those essential oils begin to rapidly oxidize and evaporate.
So it loses its potency.
Very quickly. Within weeks, a pre-ground powder becomes little more than inert, spicy dust.
So rule number 1, you must buy the whole structurally intact fruit. Rule number 2, it must be completely uncrumbled. If it is broken in the bin, the oils are leaking out.
Exactly.
Rule number 3, it must be bone dry to prevent any mold proliferation.
And The text actually offers a piece of advanced advice here.
Oh,
To guarantee maximum potency, you should research the local harvesting season, purchase the whole spice fresh immediately after it is dried by the farmers, and store it yourself in an airtight glass container.
that requires a level of intentionality that we have largely lost in modern consumerism.
It does, but it's necessary. And once you have secured high-quality, perfectly preserved Arisi Thipoli, the text mandates a mandatory preparation step that cannot, under any circumstances, be skipped.
What's the step?
Because Thipoli contains a much higher concentration of active alkaloids than standard black pepper, it is chemically far hotter and more intensely pungent. If consumed completely raw, it can act as a severe gastric irritant.
It'll burn your stomach.
Right. Therefore, the text states it must be lightly roasted before any medicinal use.
What exactly is happening on a molecular level when you expose this dried pepper to gentle heat in a pan?
Gentle roasting achieves two vital pharmacological goals. First, it drives off any microscopic residual moisture trapped deep within the core of the spice.
Making it easier to grind.
Exactly. This ensures that when you do grind it, it pulverizes into an ultra-fine microscopic powder, which exponentially increases its surface area and allows for rapid absorption through the mucosal lining of the stomach.
And the second goal?
Second, and more critically, the thermal energy initiates a slight chemical alteration of the piperine structure. It acts almost like a decarboxylation process.
Ooh, interesting.
Yeah, it mellows the harsh, raw pungency that would inflame the stomach lining, while simultaneously activating and stabilizing the deeper therapeutic heat, the precise pithum-raising properties we want.
It tempers the blade of the bulldozer, ensuring it clears the debris without ripping up the underlying asphalt of your digestive tract.
Exactly.
So you have carefully sourced, perfectly dry, gently roasted, freshly ground Arisi Thipoli. How do you deploy it? The text provides two primary pathways. The first is a rapid response intervention for acute distress.
Right.
Say you wake up with a severe racking cough and you can feel that thick, sticky, cooked sago mucus adhering to your bronchial walls.
For that acute scenario, the text dictates a microdose approach. You take precisely 3 pinches of your freshly prepared Thipoli powder.
3 pinches. Not a tablespoon, not a handful. That minute quantity underscores how bioactively potent this substance is when properly prepared.
Indeed. You take those 3 pinches and blend them thoroughly with 2 specific liquid carriers. A small amount of freshly extracted betel leaf juice and pure, raw honey.
This creates a highly synergistic triad.
It does.
The betel leaf juice acts as a sharp, penetrating biochemical vector. It possesses its own volatile oils that aggressively dilate the microcapillaries in the throat and lungs, essentially driving the Thipoli's piperine directly into the inflamed tissues.
And the honey.
The honey acts as a viscous, soothing coating agent, calming the immediate irritation while providing antimicrobial support.
It is a precision pharmacological strike designed to violently dislodge and expel the mucus in a matter of hours.
But the text doesn't just leave us with a quick fix for a bad night. The culmination of this entire source document is the presentation of what I can only describe as a masterclass in compounding pharmacy.
Oh, the Rasayanam.
Yes. It is the ultimate preventative medicine, a complex formulation known as Thipoli Rasayanam.
Within the Siddha tradition, a Rasayanam is an elite class of rejuvenating medicine. The text positions this specific formulation as the premier preventative shield against asthma and chronic respiratory degradation.
It's meant for everyday use.
It states that this compound should be a permanent fixture in any household that regularly battles seasonal flus, chronic colds, or the debilitating effects of urban air pollution.
When you look at the recipe provided in the text, it looked like a brilliantly engineered piece of biological software. There are 8 distinct botanical inputs, and the ratios are incredibly specific. Let's break down the exact chemistry of this formulation.
The hierarchy of the ingredients is vital. The undisputed focal point, the primary active agent, is the long pepper itself. You begin with exactly 100 grams of Arisi Thipoli.
100 grams of our biological bulldozer to anchor the formulation.
Correct. But a bulldozer needs a support crew to function efficiently. The text introduces 7 highly specialized supporting botanicals and dictates that exactly 25 grams of each must be used to create perfect equilibrium.
What are the 7?
The supporting matrix consists of standard black pepper, dried ginger, cardamom, which is known as ilam, cumin seeds or sirigam, the thipoli root, the mulam we discussed earlier, a potent herb called Vividangum, and finally, the bowel-regulating Kadukai.
And the text includes a massive warning regarding the Kadukai.
Very important warning.
You must meticulously remove every single seed from the haritaki fruit before grinding, as the seeds are considered highly toxic in Siddha pharmacology, while the flesh is medicine.
Yes, the seed must be discarded.
So we have our 100 grams of the captain
Yep.
and 7 team members at 25 grams each. When you analyze that list, the brilliance is staggering.
How so? Let's walk through it.
Well, the ginger and black pepper provide immediate surface-level circulatory stimulation and fast-acting heat. The cardamom and cumins act as potent carminatives. Their essential oils specifically target the smooth muscle of the gastrointestinal tract to prevent cramping and optimize the absorption of the heavier alkaloids.
They crop the gut.
Exactly. Then the thipoli root brings that deep tissue, fat-soluble anti-inflammatory action to soothe the structural wear and tear of chronic coughing.
And the Vividangum.
The Vividangum is revered as an intense anti-parasitic and antimicrobial agent, ensuring the gut microbiome is cleared of pathogenic loads.
And finally, the Kadukai.
The Kadukai acts as the designated exit strategy, maintaining active peristalsis to ensure that all the mucus and toxins liquefied by the pepper are swiftly evacuated through the bowels.
It is a masterstroke of synergistic pharmacology, where every single compound covers the potential blind spots of the others.
It's beautiful.
But compounding these dry powders is only half the process. The manufacturing methodology outlined in the text is a multi-stage thermal extraction.
So you don't just mix them in a bowl.
No, you must gently roast every single botanical independently to respect their varying volatilities and then grind them together into a unified microscopic powder.
But you don't consume it as a dry powder. The text requires a very specific binding matrix to turn it into a consumable medicine.
Yes. The practitioner is instructed to create a dense, boiling syrup using pure palm jaggery.
Palm jaggery is critically different from refined white sugar.
Very different.
It is unrefined, fiercely dark, and packed with trace minerals like iron and magnesium. Most importantly, it has a lower glycemic index and does not trigger the massive pro-inflammatory cytokine cascades associated with processed sucrose.
That's key. You take this boiling, mineral-rich syrup and you slowly, continuously fold the blended herbal powder into it over low heat. You cook this entire matrix down until it achieves the exact consistency of a legume.
For you guys trying to visualize this in your kitchen, a legume is essentially a highly concentrated, incredibly dense, sticky medicinal jam. It looks almost like a dark, thick paste.
Precisely. You reduce the moisture content until it forms that dense paste. You remove it from the heat and allow it to cool completely to room temperature.
And once it's cooled,
Once cooled, the final step is to fold in a generous, specific volume of raw, unheated honey.
and the timing here is crucial, right?
Absolutely crucial. If you add honey to a boiling mixture, Ayurvedic and Siddha texts state it alters the molecular structure and creates toxic byproducts.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. By adding it cold, the honey acts as a natural antibacterial preservative, allowing this rasayanam to sit on a shelf for months without spoiling.
That's incredibly smart.
Furthermore, the honey acts as the ultimate anupana, a biovehicle that is deeply recognized by the body, ensuring the complex alkaloids are delivered directly into the deep respiratory tissues.
So you have spent hours creating this jar of dark, sweet, intensely spicy, pharmacologically complex jam. What is the actual clinical application? How much do you take?
Given the density of the medicine, the dosage is remarkably small. The text prescribes an amount roughly the size of a sundakai, which is a tiny wild turkey berry found in India.
So roughly equivalent to the size of a small blueberry or a garden pea.
Exactly. You consume the single pea-sized amount every evening. And the text emphasizes that because of the balanced nature of the formulation, it is universally applicable across generations.
So kids and adults.
Yes, say for young children developing their immune systems, up to the elderly managing chronic decline.
And the physiological result of taking this daily.
It creates a fortress of internal heat. It fundamentally reduces the severity, frequency, and duration of asthmatic episodes.
So the mucus doesn't stand a chance.
Right. It keeps the bronchial pathways aggressively dilated, ensuring that the heavy, viscoelastic cooked sago mucus simply cannot gain a foothold on the cellular walls.
But what is truly brilliant, what the text highlights as the ultimate triumph of this rasayanam, is that while it defends the lungs, it simultaneously resolves the secondary physiological drag that ruins the quality of life for chronic disease sufferers.
Resolving the secondary physiological drag, that is a perfect way to phrase it.
Because if you suffer from severe asthma, you know intimately that the disease is never just about struggling to breathe for an hour.
No, it's exhaustive.
It is the systemic exhaustion. It is the deep, painful bloating in your gut. It is the chronic, stubborn constipation that leaves you feeling toxic, sluggish, and heavy for days on end.
Exactly.
This Rosianum doesn't just hand you a temporary pass to breathe, it systematically dismantles the entire interconnected web of symptoms. It heals the gut to free the lungs.
It is the ultimate manifestation of the holistic principle. To cure the part, you must optimize the whole.
Which brings us to the end of our journey through this remarkable historical text. Let's take a moment to look back at the sheer scale of what we have uncovered today.
It's been quite a ride.
We started by taking Thipoli, the long pepper, out of the dusty, forgotten shadows of history, finally giving it the spotlight it deserves, alongside ginger and black pepper.
We examined the profound respect it commanded from ancient masters, dissecting the concept of a plant powerful enough to force severe, wasting bacterial infections like primary complex to yield.
We explored the core thermodynamic philosophy of Siddha medicine, learning how raising pitham, the body's central metabolic fire, can eradicate stagnant respiratory mucus while simultaneously supercharging systemic circulation to restore reproductive vitality.
And then we subjected that ancient philosophy to the rigor of modern biochemistry. We discovered that Thipoli operates as a sophisticated, naturally occurring anti-leukotriene, chemically mirroring the exact mechanism of modern nightly asthma pharmaceuticals.
We visualized its power as a biological solvent, tearing sticky, Coxsackie mucus from the lung walls and acting as a vital biochemical shield against the histamine cascades triggered by 21st century urban air pollution.
We also shattered the modern illusion of isolated bodily systems, exploring the undeniable mechanical reality of the gut-lung axis.
We learned that true respiratory freedom often requires the bowel-regulating power of Kadukai to open the body's downward exit pathways.
We witnessed Thipoli's capacity as a systemic blood purifier, capable of altering the internal environment so drastically that deep-rooted fungal infections simply cannot survive.
We didn't even stop at the fruit. We dug up the root system, discovering how boiling Thipoli mullum in milk acts as a chemical key, extracting fat-soluble compounds to target severe spinal degeneration and lumbago.
We saw its remarkable application in complex women's health, combining with astringent botanicals to regulate bleeding and pelvic inflammation.
And finally, we decoded the rigorous, uncompromising methodology required to harness this power, from selecting the potent Arisi variant and properly roasting it, to the meticulous 8-part compounding of the Thipoli Rosianum, a masterwork of preventative pharmacology.
We have literally unpacked an entire self-contained medical paradigm hidden within the cellular structure of a single forgotten kitchen spice.
It is genuinely staggering when you step back and look at the whole picture. Which brings us to the end of our deep dive today, but we want to leave you with a conceptual thread to pull on.
If we synthesize everything we have analyzed today, it forces a profound realization about the trajectory of human knowledge. We possess a historical text where an ancient poet confidently claims that a specific root will make severe respiratory diseases bow down.
For centuries, modern science might have dismissed that as romantic, unscientific hyperbole.
Yet today, peer-reviewed international medical journals map out the exact arachidonic acid pathways, proving that the alkaloids in this exact plant chemically inhibit 5-lipoxygenase and block leukotriene receptors.
The ancient poet and the modern biochemist are staring at the exact same truth, just describing it in different languages.
Precisely. And the provocative question that leaves us with is this. If the forgotten, ignored third member of a simple, everyday spice trinity possesses this much staggering, raw, scientifically verifiable disease-crushing power. Disease-crushing power. What else have we missed?
Yeah, what other seemingly mundane, unremarkable roots, seeds, and leaves sitting quietly in jars at the back of our pantries right now are actually dormant, highly advanced medical technologies, simply waiting for our modern scientific instruments to finally catch up to the brilliance of ancient observation.
That makes you wonder.
So what does this all mean for you? It means you should probably go look at your spice rack with a profound new level of respect. It means the solutions to some of our most complex modern ailments might not be waiting in a futuristic laboratory, but hiding in plain sight in the dust of history. Keep asking questions, keep looking past the obvious surface of things, and remember that sometimes the most powerful tools are simply the ones we forgot how to wield. Stay curious, and we will see you on the next deep dive.